I guess if both of y'all could sort of address having a long pause and what you did to get through it, and if you're sort of antsy about playing again.
I'm very anxious to play again. Knowing that I live, dream, breathe basketball, those like 6 days really did like was very long for me, honestly. But sometimes you do need time. Like that time, I really did reflect on myself and reflect on how I wanted to help this team and what I wanted to change about myself internally. So I feel like those 6 days was negative and positive at the same time.
I think they're positive also. I mean, last year I had kind of a similar situation happen to me. So I think the pause just takes you like back to reality for a second. Like there's bigger things going on in this world and we get an opportunity to play basketball every day. And so I think it just goes back to you have to make the most of it and you can't let an opportunity go because like we saw 2 years ago, like the season can be taken from you at any moment. So I think just being at home for those 5 days, like speaking for myself, like you just reflect on that you have to give it your all every day. Like starting in the first day that we got back to practice, like we were all so excited to be back and like just see each other smile again.
Alyssa, did it make it any tougher that you were coming off a loss? That you had to sit with that for however long it's been now?
Absolutely, I feel like that was the hardest part. Is just like you went into quarantine like on a loss. Like I don't know. Like that's all I thought about most of quarantine was just like what we could change, watching film, and just like helping us go on.
Is it going to be any tougher that you guys missed two home games and won't have another one until January 19th?
Personally, I don't think so. I think like Liz talked about earlier, like we're just so excited to be back and playing, and so I think if that's not enough motivation for us at this point, then I think that's bigger problems.
For
What do
sure.
you guys see from OU?
We see a team that's coming off like a good season so far. So they have like that energy. You know, everybody wants to come out here and beat Baylor, knowing that we did lose to K State. So I mean, I know we have that target on our back. So really, with us, we just gotta focus on ourselves at this point. Focus on the scout, focus on everything else. We know they have an outstanding shooter. We know they have Maddie Williams who can get to the paint and score the ball. So just focusing on our scout really.
Melissa, being in quarantine, were there any maybe like at home drills or anything that you were able to do because you guys couldn't meet as a team?
I was on 2K, so that helped me. Nah, I ain't really do nothing. I'm not gonna lie. I sat in that bed and just thought about what I could do.
Jordan, what do you feel like you guys have to get better at from the Kansas State game?
I think first, just being more connected on the court and finding ways to get through tough situations. I think we've been tested a lot this season. And I think finding that chemistry between all of us. I mean, Coach Dickey says it every day. I don't think we've had our best game yet. And I think we have one person shoot the ball well, or Liz will have a big game, or somebody will have a big game. But I don't think we've collectively put together our best show yet. And so I think that's what we've been working really hard on this week is really just getting connected and the stuff that's really what makes the team best, not really the shot making. Like all that's gonna come. Like we're all good players. We're all here for a reason. I just think getting connected at the core is the most important thing right now. And I feel like going into this game, we've done a great job of doing that.
Good job.
Alyssa, do you ever get used to? I mean, K State obviously did try to just take you out of it. Do you get used to that? How do you play through that kind of thing?
Well, games like losses, it teaches you a lot of lessons on how you can score the ball differently and like different ways to attack. I mean, they played us in the zone. We didn't really focus on the zone as much as we should have. So, I mean, now we know what to do when the zone does come. So, I mean, I'm thankful for that loss. It taught us a lot of things.
I guess just one last thing, Melissa. You said that you had time to think about it during quarantine. Is there reason to panic after a loss to K State since it's been so long, or no reason to panic?
Absolutely not. The show goes on. I mean, we got to keep going from here. You can't dwell on a loss because it's just going to make things worse. We got to, find things to fix, keep moving on. So we got to keep playing.
Does it seem like a long haul of a schedule, though? Yet 17 games left now between now and the first week of March.
Not really. I mean, the game conference comes quick, so we'll play one game and then 2 days go by, we play another game. So it's just about, staying focused, keeping on our scout, keeping on being in the gym.
Hey everyone.
Nikki, how did you cope with the time off? What are your thoughts on the pause?
Yeah, probably not as well as the players did. I think I think 18 to 22-year-olds are good at sleeping and resting and binging on Netflix shows and things like that. So hopefully it was honestly like almost more of a restful time. Fortunately, we didn't have anyone that was severely sick. But we also pretty much fully got hit. So, for me personally, I felt good that I only had sniffles and could, that was the majority of it for me. But my biggest problem was my sleep cycle, because when you're not active during the day, then you're not tired, and so you don't go to sleep as early at night, and then the next thing you know, you're still up at 2:30 watching film of Oklahoma and the nightmare of Maddie Williams and Taylor Robertson, and then that just kind of cycles into, then you have a hard time getting up, and then you nap. I mean it. But, I read a couple books, took a lot of notes, watched a lot of film, spent a lot of time thinking about how I can continue to help this team really embody our core values and to be more connected and more communicative and all the things that, kind of are important for our culture and how to creatively do it and then hold them accountable to those core values. And so, we've had a couple spirited days of practice. I think coming out, kind of hit the reset button and realize that all our goals and expectations are still there and still accomplishable. That's even a word, but but that we have to not be the best collection of talent. We have to be the best team. And I think that's the key, is that we continue to become a better team, and not because players haven't wanted to be a better team, but just finding ways to be better teammates, finding ways to be more focused, finding ways to, really commit to the main thing.
How about conditioning-wise? The girls seem back in shape and ready to go?
Yeah, pleasantly surprised. We've been pretty limited in a return to play capacity the last few days, so which is smart. I think our doctors feel like the last thing we want to do to them muscularly or skeletally is to, not, if you truly take 5 days off, then being able to ramp up slowly. So we've been really intentional about return to play. But, I would say, there's an advantage to obviously a 5-day isolation rather than a 10 in terms of, how your body can break down and forget how to be active. So, at this point, we still have some people ramping back up, and we have some that are kind of full go, and today was their first day of full go.
What do you see from OU?
They're fast. OU, they, what they are is they're a team that, with a new coach that is playing a style that they're having fun with. People are going to say they're offensively driven, and they certainly are. Top 5 in the country in scoring, top 5 in the country in pace. They want to outscore you, but in all honesty, I don't think they're a horrible defensive team. Like some people would say, they give up a lot of points. Well, when you're trying to decide what kind of a defensive team you're going to be, if you're going to play with great pace and create a lot of possessions, then you can't establish a points per game marker as, this is how we're going to determine whether we're good defensively or not. They're holding teams to 39% shooting. A lot of that they do because if you play their pace, you take shots that are sometimes out of rhythm. You're playing a little too fast, and you might be wide open because of this pace they've created, but you miss those shots. So certainly Taylor Robertson is an incredible shooter. She will break the Big 12 3-point record this year. Obviously has a COVID year next year and could probably obliterate it if she stays, and she probably is going to obliterate it anyway. And the crazy part about her is the efficiency. She's had 3 teams face guard her in the league so far, literally face guard her like grade school. and she's still averaging, 18 points a game, shooting 48% from 3, and is 9 for 11 from 2 in conference games. So, she's just so efficient, and you have to find her early, and you can't let her go late because they're so good at getting offensive rebounds and finding her at the arc after offensive rebounds. And then, Maddie Williams is who's making them go. She scores all over the court, from 3, from the lane, in rim runs and trail. And so she's probably their most dynamic scorer. So, those are the guys that you really got to key in on.
Jordan talked about the team needing, or I guess the team hasn't played their peak performance where everyone's doing well at the same time. That will come. But you said the team needs to play more together as a team. So what needs to happen from your perspective for them to just play more as a team?
Trust one another. I think that, when you have the best player in the country on your team, sometimes you get too uber focused on making sure she gets touches. And, a lot of it for us has been, we got to make the right play. And the right play may very well be to go to Nalissa and go to her early and go to her often. But it also can be, that full belief system that there's a reason why Jamie scored 17 points a game last year in the Big 12, and it wasn't lack of confidence. There's a reason why, Jordan is in the record books in Alabama, and I think it's kind of asserting themselves in a way that they can confidently, I dislike hearing players say this. It's a very common thing for players to say today. I just want to be able to play my game. I just want to be able to play my game. I think there's something to be said for understanding what your role is on a team. And everyone who thinks their game is one thing, it oftentimes doesn't translate, even though that's, what their trainer or what somebody has told them. And so, it's finding ways for every player on this team to be their best self individually. It doesn't mean they're going to take every shot that they think they're capable of making. It's learning to take the great ones, learning to turn down the good ones to get to the great ones. It's making the right play. We've played fairly cohesively defensively. And I believe the same thing. I believe that I still believe it's going to be scary when our guards get going like they're capable of doing. We just haven't had that game. You look at the beginning of the K-State game, and Jordan and Jamie were both getting open threes and missing them. And you can take the approach of stopping and shooting them, but you're not going to open up the lane until you make some of those shots, and especially with a 6'6" center in there. So. I think it's picking your spots and confidently making the plays that you're capable of making and not second guessing them. And I'm not a coach that's particularly hard on players when they take the shots that I think they're capable of making and they miss. I try to positively tell them when that was a good shot, and if it isn't, I'm going to tell them. But I don't spend a lot of time like yelling at them during a game for taking bad shots. It's funny, it's not only that, but we had the Michigan loss going into Christmas that I, obviously stewed over, and then this one. In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I think that, when you think about, and by no means am I a medical expert, but this variant, seems to be steamrolling through, and for us, I feel like at least everyone got it at the same time, and it's not this situation where you lose 2 this day and 3 this day, because going to K-State with 7 was really difficult mentally, when you're putting 7 on the plane. We had more managers than players, and some of those players not feeling well. We tested them, they tested negative, but not feeling well. I mean, we played with players that didn't feel well. And so, I've tried to take the approach with this time as an opportunity to reboot, as an opportunity for them to think about hey, it wasn't necessarily that player for player, that anyone that has beaten us has been better than us, but but they played better. Maybe they played more connected. K-State knows. They put 3 freshmen out there. They know their job is to get it to, their center. But at the same time, if you look at the next game when they beat West Virginia, she didn't get a lot of touches, but they banged threes all day. And so, to me, I believe that the way to beat them is to make them go 2 by 2 by 2 instead of giving up threes. And so they've won both ways. They've found a way to win both ways when they're getting her lots of touches and she's scoring, and when teams put one in front and one in back and make those guys make threes, they've done that. So that's part of finding your identity and being a good team. And I think we're capable of doing that. And that just, I've said from the beginning, and I'm going to keep saying it. And, I know I'm not perfect, and I'm going to get situations wrong and plays wrong, but I just think this team is going to be better in March. And I've said that since September, that it's going to take time for them to mesh. It's going to take time. You're not talking about freshmen that absolutely understand that they're going to defer, and play off someone. You're talking about players who are used to being the best player on their team and are certainly more than willing to sacrifice, but are trying to find out how to sacrifice, but then how to lead at the same time. And so, you have the weight of expectations here. You have the weight of individual expectations here. So, I told them, like, we still have the opportunity. We're still going to play Kansas State again. We're still going to play everybody else twice. And so we still control our own destiny, and we have to approach each game like we have to be focused on the next game. We have to be focused on getting better every day. And then the wins and losses will take care of themselves.
Speaking of playing everybody twice, have you been given any indication when those other games might be rescheduled?
Yeah, I think it's still like a work in progress. I think they, I know originally, people thought, oh, well, we could play today. We couldn't have played a game today. Like that's, from a return, a health and safety protocol really for our players and understanding what was best for them. I'm comfortable playing on Wednesday, but I think, even in the midst of changing protocols and things like that, playing 10 days after you've been on a full shutdown, no one has done that. You look at other teams around the country that played their first game this week and hadn't played since before Christmas. So, it's you want to make sure you're not taking knives to a gunfight in terms of where they're at physically. So I think they're working on the schedule. I think they kind of start to, put together options, and then it's up to us to kind of, I think, look at those and see if it'll work. If it'll work. So I there's definitely a plan. As far as the plan is not to cancel them. The plan is to reschedule. And so when those are, we don't know yet, but that definitely is the plan.
Coach, it's been a long time since K-State beat Baylor. Do you feel like other teams that have kind of been beat up by Baylor over the years might be looking and saying, okay, this is our chance to beat them also? And then on top of that, how do you get your team from feeling vulnerable and keep them staying confident?
It's not easy. Did I know when I took this job that it was going to be difficult? Absolutely. Do I think that, is it easy when you lose a game and you don't necessarily play as well as you think you're capable of playing? That it scrolls that, K-State hasn't beaten Baylor since 2008 or whatever. Sure, that's hard. Do I think these guys still believe in themselves? Yes. Do they believe in, why they came to Baylor and what the expectations are? Yes. But I also think I've been telling them since September that people are going to think we're vulnerable before we ever lost a game. And it starts with me. I said they're going to view me as the first chink in the armor because, there's been this success, and that doesn't mean that I'm sitting here not confident that I'm capable of winning games like Coach Mulkey did. But it's still outside perception. Was there an air of invincibility, that was built over time, and a almost a sense from the players who played in this program that they were entitled to it. that there was, that it was just gonna happen, as opposed to making sure they were working to make it happen. And so, that's been part of this reset is you can't take for granted that other people are going to show up and compete. And whether that's, Texas, K-State, or Iowa State, or whoever you think is the best team in the league, or the second best team in the league, or the worst team in the league, like that, you gotta come to play every game, and you gotta win them. You can't expect other people to not show up or to just assume they're going to lose. And if you want to create that sense of dominance and superiority, you got to do it from the tip. And you have to do it in how you prepare, and you have to do it in how you prepare before a game, and you have to do it when you step on the court, and you have to do it the first possession and the 12th possession. And, I told them, like, I think they had the taste in their mouth of K-State. Playing them on senior day here. And you talk about two diverging programs at the time, one that was on a hot streak and had a senior day with some really special seniors here, one who, wasn't in the thick of things, and it was the last game. And, when you've lost a bunch in a row and you're not playing as well, there's different mindsets that they went into that game versus this year playing them in a first conference game when K-State had just beaten Oregon. And had momentum and confidence. And, confidence is such a big part of sports and basketball and the mental part of the game. And so we weren't facing a K-State team that, had any reason to feel inferior. They started 3 freshmen. They played a JUCO kid. They played a bunch of kids that had never played against Baylor. So, call it being naive, call it whatever you want, but and so, it's you got to go assert yourself. I mean, you have to assert yourself. And we're going to go play an Oklahoma team that's going to feel like they should beat us on their home floor. Absolutely. Like, they're not going to feel like they're the lesser team. So, you have to assert that, hey, we can be more dominant than you in the lane, and we're going to be great in transition defense because that's what we have to do, and we should dominate the boards. And there are certain things that we're going to have to do to win that game. And our players have to believe it, and then they have to do it, And I told them it's going to be a race on defense. You're going to have to rest on offense because you aren't going to be able to rest on defense, So, yeah, I mean, I think stylistically, Oklahoma's in a really good space. They've got a lot of confidence right now.
Did you have any shutdowns last year?
Did I?
Your team?
No, I was, I was lucky enough, in some ways, like the biggest uncertainty we had was, the WNBA season even starting and getting off. We were coming off a groundbreaking CBA and, excitement over a season, and then, the conference tournaments being halted. I know the Big 12 didn't play one that spring. And so, our season being pushed and having to make decisions without training camp and get to a 12-player roster and wondering who was going to opt into the season and who was going to opt out. I had 2 players opt out going to the bubble that season. But for us, I mean, believe me, we had our fair share. We probably had more issues in the bubble than any team in the W. Like, it wasn't close because, we had someone that had COVID and barely could get to the bubble. We just know so much more about it then. Back then you had to test negative 2 times in a row within 48 hours, and tests were hard to come by. And, we had someone test positive like July 1, and I don't think they played their first game until the second week in August, just trying to get 2 negatives in a row. I mean, just to get them to the bubble until the NBA made the rule that if you took a rapid test on that day and you had proven that you had the antibodies, that they were going to say it was basically a false positive and still in your system. So, we had, we had the only 2 players that had COVID in the bubble with Glory Johnson and Kalani, which, they announced, so that's not me giving anything up. But, that was such a process to get them back because we were so concerned about cardiac stuff, so you had to get them out of the bubble to get them an MRI. You had to send the MRI results back via FedEx to a doctor to look at. Then you had a long return to play. I mean, Kalani basically missed the whole season, for us. So we had COVID issues, but they looked different. I had 8 players in training camp in the bubble, but it's funny that players opted out of it because of health concerns that year, and IMG Academy was the safest place on the planet from July to September that year. Like, we didn't have a single player or staff person test positive in the bubble. We took 2 players into the bubble that had tested negative before we left, but tested positive the first day we were there. So they didn't get it there. It was the safest place on the planet. It was Groundhog's Day every day, but it was definitely COVID free.